Throughout all history, art has been heavily influenced and monopolized by the rich, leaving little room for the poor to participate in the dialogue of the artwork. As art became a more immersive experience, however, the boundaries between the wealthy and the impoverished began to break down. As the viewer became more incorporated in the piece, and the use of dreamscape imagery, the line between poor and wealthy.
Antoine Jean Gros' Napoleon in the Pest House at Jaffa displays this French power assisting those infected by the plague. Napoleon stands amongst the sick, adorning his usual heroic stance and garb, as the weak individuals rise to their feet as if healed simply by his presence. This was great propaganda for Napoleon, by being shown as a brave leader and meant to appeal to the upper class who dominated all political decisions. However, this painting does not tell the story as it was. Napoleon was guilty of poisoning and killing these sickly soldiers before retreating from Jaffa. His wealth and power prove effective in allowing him to get away with such a crime, while if someone of a lower class had committed such an atrocity, they would likely be executed for their actions. Francisco de Goya's family of Charles IV makes a statement by the bold chance that the artist took in calling out all of the imperfections of the Spanish royal family. Of course, the group was adorned in their best clothing in preparation for the piece, but unlike most portraits that were commissioned at the time, the uneven skin tones, double chins, and altogether unattractiveness of King Charles's family is not ignored in Goya's work. This was risky, but King Charles and the others were pleased with the results. This piece was a great way of showing how royalty does not always equal beauty, and hinders the wall between the rich and the poor.
The liver is associated with passion, like the cock's comb is associated with pride and the act of being cocky. And the liver is in the cock's comb by Gorky. Not only does he try to express emotion through the subjects in his work, but he also uses Greek Dali, which includes dreamlike imagery that would have made it easier for his art to relate to the poor, because they can see in the ways in which the wealthy have so much pride and cockiness for what they have. They would also be able to imagine themselves as the cock, and how they too can have pride in what they are and what they have, even if it's as simple as a comb. In The Scream by Edward Munch, Munch expresses the feelings of distress, loneliness, and anxiety. The poor needed this piece to be able not only to relate to these feelings because of the way that they were living, but because they also needed to release these feelings which otherwise would not be able to come out in society without being taken as crazy by others. This piece would have given the needy something to connect with if they were only able to have access to it.
In Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory, he was attempting to create this dream world which relies heavily on the union of unrelated objects. This abnormal combination of objects transports the viewer into a seemingly alternate dimension. It creates a sense of hollowness and insignificance in the viewer, demonstrating to them that eventually their life will run out too. This allusion to death, and it being the common denominator that everyone has, allows for the viewer to be from any social standing and still be completely in tune with the message. The same desperation and fear will be felt by all the patrons of the museum. This piece was not made to please the rich. Instead, it eliminates the notion of social standing. Ilya Kapikov's installation, The Man Who Flew into Space from His Apartment, is a prime example of an immersive experience directed towards the impoverished and wealthy alike. It demonstrates the decay and ruin of communist Russia and takes you into the mind of this man who just wants to break free of these constraints. Viewers are experiencing the devastation of this man's life and the lost hope in the utopian society the communists had hoped to achieve. The poor can easily understand this image of complete despair and may actually be transported to a darker place than the one they are in, while the wealthy are given the opportunity to be completely immersed in a different world and see and feel how those less fortunate than them are living.
Inaccessible for those less affluent, they also had no money with which to acquire the paintings. Due to this fact, earlier artists only sought to target the wealthy. There was no purpose in targeting a demographic that could not help the artist make a living. As art became more philosophical and a submersive form, it became more accessible to the poor, and allowed for the evolution of the same emotions regardless of social standing.